Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great being on the air with you, Dr. Shealy. Thank you so much. You know, it's been a little over 7 years. Time flies, yes?
Time does pass, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Andy's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor. And if you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And telephone listen lines up and running, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Dr. Shealy, when Andy and I first connected, I asked Andy if he had any medical questions, and he said, yeah. What do you do if you have an ear infection? So he has the beginning of tickling in his ear, and he was wondering, what do you do about that?
Well, personally, I would take 4,000 milligrams of vitamin C and 30 milligrams of astaxanthin immediately.
Okay. Have you ever heard of putting a drop of olive oil in the ear? And so for those who have ticks crawling in their ear, they don't know what to do to get it out. That was,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, olive oil or castor oil, I like castor oil even better because it really is good for the immune system.
Okay, so would that be like just one drop or put some on a Q-tip?
Yeah, just a drop. You don't want to fill the ear with it.
Yeah. Okay. So 4,000 milligrams or 4 grams of vitamin C. Now, would you recommend that if Andy doesn't consume vitamin C regularly in that dose, should he space it out?
Then I would recommend my youth formula. But that only gives him, 4 of those gives him 2 grams. But I think all adults should be on that.
Mm-hmm. So, Andy, what I do is I take Dr. Shealy's youth formula, and it's a great dose of vitamin C with MSM. Take it every day, multiple times every day. And, I don't like getting below one bottle of it. When I get down to one, I start looking around like, wait a minute, we're getting near the end of this. So I won't say I'm addicted to it. That's not the word. But I absolutely think that it alleviates pain, and I want to make sure that I don't get sick. So that's why I take it. And then you recommended 30 milligrams of astaxanthin as well. Right. Is there anything else he should do?
Well, all adults should also take 25 milligrams or more of vitamin A. Vitamin B complex, like my essentials.
Yes, vitamin B complex. That's in your essentials. And Dr. Shealy, I've got to tell you, I was going to say, my favorite was your youth formula, but I got to tell you, your essentials are also my favorite. So if I can have 2 favorites, I really.
Yeah, I have 3. Those 2, but also astaxanthin. Now, for the average person where you're just using it for prevention, probably 10 milligrams is enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now, so Mrs. Finelli saw your youth formula and your essentials, and so she's been taking them as well. And I was very pleased to see that. And now, when you take your youth formula and your essentials, especially the essentials, your urine turns a brighter yellow. Now,
yes,
what does that mean?
That's the B complex. That's what I call adequate B complex.
And what? Okay, so that is that an indicator that it's working properly?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it's not quite electric yellow, but it's pretty yellow compared to a very pale yellow. Yeah. Okay. And can you overdose on either of those, Dr. Shealy, your youth formula or your essentials?
Well, I suppose you could. You would have to take at least 5 a day of the essentials. Long term, that would be a slight overdose because of the vitamin B6. In other words, vitamin B6 is the only one of what I call the basic Bs, the B1, B2, B3, B6. Those are basic Bs. Vitamin B6 is the only one where you shouldn't take more than 100 milligrams a day long term.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. What happens if you do?
Well, I don't know if anybody's ever tested it this way, but when I learned this in treating carpal tunnel syndrome. Carpal tunnel syndrome can be cured by taking for 1 month 1,000 milligrams a day of B6, and the second month 500 milligrams. After that, you must cut it to 100 milligrams. So when you take, like 150 or 200 milligrams of B6 over 2 months, it can actually cause nerve damage. But at 1,000 milligrams for 1 month, and then 500 for 1 month, and then 100 forever, it will never cause damage. All the others, you can take a couple hundred or more safely forever. But I don't see any need for it except in extreme circumstances. 50 milligrams for the average adult is just about right.
Back in the 1960s, families used to have what they called cocktail parties, and they'd invite their neighborhood friends over, and they would have it might start out with beer, but generally it was mixed drinks and Manhattans and whiskey sours and that kind of thing, and so a lot of times some would indulge too much. And what I learned was that if you've had too much to drink, and if you just go to bed, you're going to wake up with a hangover. But if you take a vitamin B complex with a large glass of water, the likelihood of waking up with a hangover is close to zero. Is that correct, or is that just
absolutely correct? As a matter of fact, even when I was in medical school, when people came in drunk, we gave them 100 milligrams of, especially thiamine, B1, intravenously, because it can help prevent brain damage.
Interesting. So, vitamin B is important if you consume too much alcohol. So, class, if you know of anyone that has consumed too much, you might want to suggest that before bed, large glass of water and a vitamin B complex. And since, Dr. Shealy, since you mentioned at medical school, I always wanted to ask you, and I've never asked you, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But the question that I'd love to ask, and I will, is what was it in your life that told you that you wanted to be a doctor? Did you just wake up one day and say, I think I'd like to be a doctor, or what?
I honestly don't know, but I do remember, and my family definitely remembers, at age 4, I announced I'm going to be a physician or a doctor. Now, we had a family friend, our family doctor. It was a close friend, so we socialized with him, and I suspect that I just liked him, and perhaps it was because of his influence. For instance, in World War II, when his son, who was at least 5 or 6 years younger than I, when his son couldn't buy, there were not available any electric train sets, I gave him mine. And that's how close we were as a family. Mm-hmm. So I suspect it was the influence of my family doc.
So what is it like when, like the first day of med school? Can you take us through what it's, if we have some some in our class are thinking that, I'd really like to be a doctor. What is it like? What are the rigors like?
Well, to me, it was never what I would call rigorous. Now, some people would find it so. But I was, I'm being kind. I was a nerd. By the time I hit the 7th or 8th grade of school, I was what I would call a nerd. All of my interest was in learning. And so because of that, I actually finished high school at age 16 and went to college and finished that in 3 years and went to medical school at 19. So I was already 3 years younger than all of my classmates, but I was ready. Now, the first year, the first semester, our major class was anatomy, human anatomy. And so in addition to, learning book stuff about muscles and nerves and tendons and all that stuff, we actually had a cadaver, a dead body embalmed that we worked on and dissected to learn the intricacies of the human. And to me, that was fun.
Working on a dead body. Not everybody's up for that.
The smell's not bad.
Everybody would eat.
Formaldehyde. It's formaldehyde, so it doesn't have a bad odor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, some people just can't take the sight of blood. This morning, Mrs. Finelli went to our neighbors because our neighbor called. She had brain surgery, and she called my wife yesterday and said, "Would you mind coming over because our son was in a motorcycle accident and he can't help me, and I need to have my IVs changed and fluids and antibiotics and so forth inserted. Can you do that?" So, it's great to be able to call on someone and have them do that. When we come back, Dr. Shealy, we've got Dan in Houston. He's on the line. He'd like to talk about stem cells. And then we've got David, patiently holding in Illinois, and he wants to talk about joint pain, oils, and CBD oils. Dan and David, please hold. We'll get right to you. That's Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, normshealy.com. Dan in Houston, welcome. You're on with Dr. Norman Shealy.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, and I've enjoyed your magnesium product, and if anybody's ordered his products before, what is inside of Shealy? H-E-A-L, heal. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to purchase some of that a few weeks ago. And this might help out, I think, the other caller, David. Is this lotion helpful for aches and pains?
Oh, yes. Now, in general, 80% of people are deficient in magnesium. And magnesium is essential for every cell activity in your body, including, pain transmission, muscle relaxation, and that kind of thing, anxiety, depression. So many people will benefit just by putting it on anywhere, but if you have a specific area where there's pain, it's wise to rub it right on that area, too. Never on the face, however. The only reason we're not putting it on the face, if you got in the eyes, it would sting.
Okay. Luckily, I have not done that yet. Now, speaking of the cells, unfortunately, my mom passed away about 16 years ago from Hodgkin's disease, and she was in the middle of doing a stem cell, and it was very tough for her, and of course, she ended up passing away in the hospital. But last week, I was listening to some stem cell information on USA Prepares, and I'd like to see if you know anything about stem cells and what this other person is promoting, and I would like to get your professional opinion.
Well, I consider overall activation of stem cells to be one of the most important oncoming, if you will, or developing of products in medicine. Now, unfortunately, most of the time, the stem cells, to get a real stem cell implant, so to speak, they're taken from someone else, basically most often from the cord blood of a newborn baby. and it gets pretty expensive, among other things. So you can also aspirate from the fat. If people have an inch of fat on their belly, you can aspirate their own fat and separate out the stem cells. And you can't even take it out of the bone marrow in that person. There are numerous techniques for activating your own stem cells. For instance, our use of fire, earth, and crystal bliss probably activates stem cells because it rejuvenates your telomeres by 3.5% a year. We're currently working on other techniques for activating the stem cells. There are a number of products, oral, that claim this, but I don't see the research behind them. And finally, an excellent company in California is introducing in January an acupuncture patch, which is said to activate stem cells. Again, I don't see the proof of it yet, but it apparently involves copper GHR peptide, which is associated with stem cell recovery. So it's a very complex field, but I'm very much in favor of it. And under many circumstances, I would consider stem cells over any chemotherapy in the world.
Yeah, well, I in my research, that's been over 16 years from just learning about cures for all diseases, cures for all cancers. Some of these books that I've read over the last 16 years held, I can't remember if her name was Clark, but there's been a lot of research over natural ways to get rid of a lot of these things. And I guess this guy that was on last week, it's feeding the stem cells to get them to reproduce. Is that what he was promoting?
Exactly. That's exactly the thing. Now, in general, if you have good health habits, your stem cell activity is considerably greater than people with poor health habits.
Okay.
Dan, would you consider holding? You've brought up a bunch of excellent points, and I've got a comment based on some results I have seen visibly with what Dr. Shealy mentioned in our family. You might be interested in hearing that. Can you stay with us?
Yes, thanks.
Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com, NormShealy.com, medical doctor, brain surgeon, surgeon of the year, neurosurgeon, and my friend. And Dr. Shealy, Dan, this is for you. Dr. Shealy did a study a couple of years ago, and it was with his bliss oils, which he mentioned, of which there are 5. And I will name them. There's crystal bliss, fire bliss, air bliss, earth bliss, and water bliss. And I want to tell you about the results that Mrs. Finelli felt. And it wasn't just her. Mrs. Finelli is, I'm going to say about 120-something pounds. So it's not much fat on her. She's blonde hair. Did I say that right, Dr. Shealy?
Absolutely. I had to ask my daughter yesterday how much she weighed because she looks thin, and but that's good.
Yeah, she weighs about 120 pounds. She's blonde hair, blue eyes. Now, I won't say big hair, okay? I won't say really, really, thick head of hair. But she's got all of her hair, the same amount she had when we started dating back in the early 70s. And so the results that she saw on the Bliss trial was that she went into the same gal where I get my hair cut. And I've been going to this gal for probably darn close to a decade. And so she knows me. And she knows Mrs. Finelli. And she saw Mrs. Finelli walk in, and she just took a step back. And she said, wow, your hair has grown like crazy. Wow. And so during the commercial break, I went in to see her in the kitchen. And I said, so how long did your hair grow in that 1 year? She said 12 inches. Now, for a blonde with, not big hair blonde, for, thin-haired blonde. That's an enormous amount of growth. And her fingernails and her toenails were growing like crazy. And her telomeres grew like crazy. Is that right, Dr. Shealy? Am I right on with this?
Right. And when we finish that part, I want to talk about body hair.
Yeah. So, Dan, I wanted to tell you that there is a link, as far as I can see, between telomere growth and the study that Dr. Shealy did with these 5 bliss oils. Now, they had to be applied every day. And it took maybe, I would say, 5 minutes for all of them to be applied religiously every day for a year. And it worked. So, Dr. Shealy, the question then is, you mentioned stem cells. Now, do you think that this triggered the extra spurt in growth for stem cells? Is that what we're thinking?
Well, I would have to assume that it does, because we know it does lengthen telomeres, which are the tips of your DNA, and that almost certainly involves, if you will, activating or rejuvenating the stem cells. Mm-hmm. So, my hair, but I'm not sure now, since last December I've been using the scalar as well, and we're looking at that for telomere rejuvenation. And my hair, I have to get a haircut in 2 weeks instead of 3, but also my chest hair. And yesterday, I'm there shaving, and I noticed that on my arm, one of the hairs is about 5 inches long, and on my chest, the hair is twice as long as it used to be.
Mm-hmm. And so let's get a little unpleasant. How about hairs on the ears and the eyebrows?
Well, mine, that's terrible. My ears, I'm beginning to look like an ape by the time I get a haircut.
See, I really didn't want to mention that. Not that you look like an ape, or not that I think that, but I have to cut the hairs on my ears because they're growing like crazy, and the hair on my head is growing like crazy, and it's curly. And I got a haircut before you came to the farm a few weeks ago. But I'll tell you what, there wasn't much difference between an afro and my hair.
Well, unfortunately, mine grows well, but it hasn't curled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and mine has a little bit of curl, or it used to. Now it has a lot of curl. So, Dan, you might want to look into Dr. Shealy's essential oils. And Dr. Shealy, can you maybe take a couple minutes and talk about, Air Bliss, what it does relating to oxytocin and crystal bliss, with free radicals, and then earth bliss for stronger than morphine, and then fire bliss, etc., and water bliss. Can you tell us a little bit more about each one of the oils?
Yeah,
I think Dan would be interested.
Each of the oils is specifically designed intuitively. I mean, it all came out of my intuition, which is all my discoveries. But Fire Bliss was the first, and it increases your DHEA. DHEA is probably the single greatest reflection of how stressed you have become. Now, at 85 years of age, my DHEA is equal to, or at least as good as a healthy 40-year-old. And that's because I do that and a few other things that raise DHEA naturally. Air Bliss raises oxytocin, which is the bonding, the nurturing hormone, phenomenal for depression and anxiety. Water Bliss normalizes aldosterone. Aldosterone is critical for water and potassium metabolism. If you have too much, it can cause trouble like blood pressure, edema. Too low, it can cause other problems with water, etc. Earth Bliss raises calcitonin, which is the strongest pain reliever in the body, and helps your bones stay stronger, avoid osteoporosis. And finally, Crystal Bliss reduces free radicals by a whopping 80%, which means it cuts down on inflammation 80%.
Dan, when I walk around town, no one, and when you do this, you're going to smell like a very pleasant perfume. And no one has ever challenged me on, hey, you wearing perfume? And I don't know if that's because right at my side is a 45 or why.
I love it.
But no one's ever said, is that perfume you're wearing, boy? But I've got to tell you, I am, in terms of Air Bliss, I'm very, very sensitive to it. And I was quite nervous. Here's the original story on Air Bliss. About 7 years ago, Dr. Shealy was broadcasting, and still is, at a radio station in Springfield, Missouri. And he was on the hour before me. And he would be in the studio, and he would get out of his seat, and I would jump in, and we would change seats for the next hour's broadcast. And he noticed that I was a new broadcaster, and I was my knees were knocking, and they had to put foam rubber between my knees so he wouldn't hear it over the microphone. And he introduced me to Air Bliss, and it really, really worked. So if you were in the studio right this minute in my neck of the woods at the farmhouse in Missouri, you would smell Air Bliss. And if you were in Dr. Shealy's location at his medical office in Springfield, Missouri, like 50, 60 miles away, you would smell Air Bliss as well. Actually, you'd probably smell a whole bunch of Blisses. So that's the real story about what happened. And I can tell you one other story. We used to have meetups in Springfield, Missouri, and this lady contacted me, and she said that she had a granddaughter who was just really active, and I think 4th grade. And the school had it with this young girl because she was, well, I guess the expression back when I was in school was she had ants in her pants. And she would squirm around, and she was looking around, and she was interested in everything. But the school didn't know how to deal with her because she was really bright, really active, and they wanted to calm her down and put her in a coma so that she was less of a distraction to the class. Well, her grandmother asked me about this, and I said, I got to tell you, Dr. Shealy's going to be at the meetup, and she wanted to buy Air Bliss. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll bring some because I have it, and you can try mine and see if it works. So they were in the booth at the restaurant, before the meetup started, and I put the little vial of Air Bliss on the table, and this young lady said, "No, that's really neat. What's that?" And I told her what it is, and I asked her parents if it'd be okay if she tried a little bit, and we put a little bit on her wrist, and she rubbed her wrist together, and the parents could not believe how almost instantly, I won't say within a second, but I would say within 30 seconds to a minute, she had calmed down, and they couldn't believe it, and so they ran out and bought it at the health food store right down the road. So that's the story. Dr. Shealy, does that sound far-fetched to you? Because that's what really happened.
No, not at all. Not at all. ADHD, attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity, all of those things are remarkably benefited from this.
Hey, guys.
Yes.
Hey, so I've been listening to you probably since tax time, and that's when I heard you on Dr. Deagle's show. Over the course of the last few months, maybe a few weeks ago, someone had mentioned, are we really making an impact on people listening in? And I'd have to be a strong believer in that. Now, is it 1% or 0.5% or 0.1% of people that are actually waking up and, trying to live off grid? I've been trying to do that for years, but talk about big steps. I think you guys are making a great impact, and I appreciate everything you've done, and you've blessed my lives, and I want to bless others. So thank you for everything you do.
Hey, thank you. Our blessings to you. Have a good one.
All right, God bless.
Thank you so much. That was so kind of you to say that. Thank you. David in Illinois, you're up next. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor, and David in Illinois is calling in. David, thank you so much for waiting so patiently.
Oh, that's fine. It was very interesting. We have these our condition's more souped up. You guys are trying to raise your levels, and the doctors have to lower ours. But we got hit by a car about 12 years ago, and it activated it again. And for years, they kept us on several different those narcotic pain medicines, and we stopped taking it. We wound up getting off of it on our own a year and a half ago. So we're trying to find alternative, ways, because they had us on about 20 different medicines. I'm down to 2, she's down to 3 different ones that are pretty much a necessity for her, except for the Celebrix. But, like, we're close to probably you guys. We're on the other side of St. Louis, and we now, like today with all the rain, she's in, massive joint knee pain. And she would like to know if there's something that she could, that's healthier, that's all natural, that she can use for that.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that particular problem. Last week I saw a mid-70-year-old lady with pain in every joint in her body. We put our cranial PEMF device on her for 30 minutes, and her pain was gone. Now, in addition, we're in the midst, but over 5 months going with treating narcotic addicts with our cranial PEMF device with unbelievable, remarkable success. So by far the single best thing would be the use of our Chakra Suite PEMF pulse electromagnetic frequency device a minimum of an hour a day.
Now, could that be ordered, or is that something that you would have to go to a medical?
You will find it on our website. It's called Chakra Sweep PEMF.
Okay. Yeah, they had us on. She said it's been 10 years they had us on the pain medicines. 3 different. And then they went to fentanyl patches, and then morphine, and we tried to tell them we didn't want to take it. They said if you don't take it, we're going to send people out to your house. So we finally got new doctors. I said, this is not a way of living. These medicines are getting us. So I'm just on one naproxen a day and Synthroid. They had me on everything. As long as I exercise, see, our conditions attack all our joints. But as long as I exercise twice a day, if not more, I don't need anything. My pain, but she can't do that. She's a tiny lady, and you were talking about these people trying to lose. She's happy now that she just weighed herself and she's at her normal 100 pounds. So, but
my experience is if you need narcotics more than a maximum of 3 months, you're in trouble. I don't like them at all. They're okay for acute illness, and I'm being kind when I say they suck for chronic stuff. But the PEMF device is probably the single greatest adjunct for pain relief. Now, nothing works in 100% of people, but our experience is extremely good.
Because we've seen a lot of them talking about these CBD oil, the rubs that you can put on your skin, or take a gummy that also helps and it doesn't have the side effects.
And supposedly it's free of the psychotropic aspects, and I'm perfectly okay with that. It's worth trying. The only problem with it, even though there's no considerable amount of it, if you ever have to be tested for drug consumption, there's enough in it. People who take it long-term may show a positive blood or urine test for THC, even with the CBD oil.
So that will show up positive. We don't do that stuff anyway. We don't even drink. So that was something that's interesting to know.
I'm with you, David.
David, would you like? Do you have any other questions?
Sure, I can ask one. I would like to ask something else.
Good,
if that's okay.
Okay. All right. Just hold through the top of the hour. News and commercials, and we'll be right back with Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor. NormShealy.com. NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy's known worldwide. We'll be right back. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us in class today. David in Illinois is and holding patiently. David, you had another question for Dr. Norman Shealy.
Yeah, now, she was talking to some of her, she's Native American, and she was asking them about pain, stuff for pain and things, and they said their relatives years ago used something called wild lettuce, and she found places that sell it in tea bag format, but she was afraid, to try it because she never heard of it before. And she said, just ask if he's heard anything about that, and if it's...
Well, it's certainly safe. Incidentally, for your information, I am a Native American medicine man as well, and my device my device that we're talking about is a sacrament of the Native American Menhar Church.
Oh, yeah. She was like, "Hey, he's, she's her relatives are Blackfeet and Cherokees. They're buried on the reservations up in Dakotas."
Right. But the lettuce you mentioned is perfectly safe.
Okay.
David, how do you spell the name of that lettuce?
You're asking the wrong person. I can't see that. She did voice and search for it, and afterwards, and seen some. After they told her, she's seen some YouTube videos, and she was like, I don't know, because she would have to order it because we wouldn't be able to tell what it is if we walk right next to it, because she lost her eyes, so she don't see anymore.
Is there any hope for regaining vision?
No, they did so many surgeries on actually both of us where she finally she went and got another specialist opinion, and the guy said, they're doing these surgeries now for no reason, and she just said, please just take them. I can't deal with this pain and to keep going through it no more. And so they removed him, And I thought she was great for doing it and doing it all at one time, and I supported her. Her family didn't, but I couldn't believe they'd want her to keep going through all that pain, And it was just amazing that somebody would say, suck it up. I'm like, you don't understand the pain that caused, and for nothing. I could see if you're going to get something out of it, but you're not.
David, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say.
Well, yeah, that's the first time I've ever heard of anything that severe in eye pain, but blessings on both of you.
Yeah, she was, she was in, like I said before, they had us on strong pain medicine. And if you have the desire and the support, like we supported each other, and we let our new doctors know, we got off all that stuff in a month and a half.
Good on you, mate.
They had us
David,
on fentanyl, narco, and morphine.
David, when you say joint pain, are you talking about knees as well?
All our joints, it depends on where it decides to attack on us, on our conditions. Like, for example, you play tennis. They call tennis elbow.
Right.
If our elbows aren't doing nothing, it can attack our elbow that day. And you won't be able, it'll be swollen and you won't be able to bend it. So we literally have to do something all the time. When I started exercising years ago to get off the medicine that they did to me before, I went from 116 pounds to 197 in a little over a year. And the doctor just said, hey, you got to slow down. I said, hey, I feel great. I should have never listened to him, because they gave me a handful of pills. They wanted to scrape, just like her. They wanted to go in our backs, our joints, our knees, all right away. That was the first appointment to the specialist. The first appointment, and we were lucky we had college as well as the experience in what our conditions were all our lives. So we just said, no. I understand you have to do surgery at a point. You have to do that, but let that be the last point.
I'm with you all the way. That's why I dropped out of surgery in 1970s. Anybody can do surgery, but it takes a little bit more common sense to try other ways.
Yeah, I had I'm sorry, I was going to say, I had a half-inch hole put into my eye, and I dealt with that pain, and I didn't have that eye removed, even though everybody said it looked bad, but they're afraid cancer and infection got in, so I had no choice to have it done 3 years ago. You know, that was, other than that, it could have stayed there. I wouldn't have cared. I wore a patch. But sorry to interrupt you. I apologize.
No problem.
I was going to ask Dr. Shealy, once you have surgery, it's really hard to undo that, isn't it?
You can never undo surgery. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
there you go, class. So, David, thank you so much for being with us.
David,
Thank you very much.
We're only about a 3.5-hour drive from you. If you wanted to come over, we could test your wife and find out very quickly whether the PEMF will help.
I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Shealy, because, David, seriously, I have been to Dr. Shealy's clinic in Springfield, Missouri, and one day I was in there picking up some youth formula, and there was a guy there, and his wife was in one of the treatment rooms, and he kind of stuck his head out, and he recognized my voice. And the reason he was, I believe he and his wife were there, is because they heard Dr. Shealy talking about the kinds of things that he does on the radio. And they came out for a week or so, about a week, I think. Is that right, Dr. Shealy? They were there for a week?
Correct.
They had their camper.
Yes, we do have some people, we believe that a week of, 40 hours of therapy could advance you over 3 or 4 months of trying to do it at home.
So, David, what I just heard Dr. Shealy say was that if you want to, call up and make an appointment and get out there and see what the results could be with this technology, it's there for you to make that call. Dr. Shealy, what number would you like him to call?
417-351-5221.
Okay, David, that's 417-351-5221. 417-351-5221. David, thanks so much for calling in today.
I'll tell you one other thing real quick, but with all this stuff that happened to us, we still ain't giving up. You always got to be positive.
Good on you. I agree totally. It's the only way to survive in today's world.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Have a good one.
There you go. That was David in Illinois. Dr. Shealy, Dan mentioned, the caller just before David, he said he heard someone mention on USA Prepares, are we making a difference? Well, I was the guy who said that. And, several weeks ago I was wondering, are we making a difference? Is anybody paying attention? And I didn't understand. Our ratings seem to be falling. I made that comment, and I didn't understand. How is it possible that people weren't interested in what is really happening with the weather, what's really happening with energy, finance, economics, medicine, physics? How is it possible? But they are interested in going to see the ball games, right? And drinking beer. How is it possible that people... Well, all of a sudden, our ratings went up. I don't understand that either. So I'm so glad that that's happened.
Yeah, don't ever under or overestimate what's possible. Remember, common sense is the uncommon commodity, but a few people have it. And the more that have it, the better for us.
And I think that's one of the common threads of the USA Prepares instructors and students. All of us. Common sense is one common thread. Not taking direction very well is probably another another common thread. Dr. Shealy, I have right here in the studio a pen. Now it's a little thicker than a ballpoint pen, probably about roughly a half an inch in diameter, maybe 6 inches long. And it is an ultraviolet light. So it's a flashlight with a button on the end, and it uses two cells to power it, and the light that comes out of it is ultraviolet. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is I bought this so that when we have an air conditioning leak in one of our vehicles, the refrigerant has a leak detector in it. Well, I can just shine this ultraviolet light and I can find out where the leak is. So we have a tractor or a couple tractors, and it works great. Now, the question I have is, can I use this ultraviolet light from a flashlight, a tiny flashlight, to disinfect something locally, something that I could hold in my hand?
Oh, almost certainly. Now, how long, I don't know it would take. Mm-hmm. But, when I was in medical school at Duke University, our operating rooms had ultraviolet lights all around the top, keep the air in the room sterile.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you don't want to look, class, you do not want to, look at ultraviolet light, okay? So I guess looking at the reflection or looking at it indirectly might be safe. I'm not really even sure of that. But in any event, Dr. Shealy, do you think that we should have, for example, in our house we have wall sconces. And if you go into some restaurants, they'll have what appears to be a large wall sconce, and you'll see this eerie blue light coming out of it. That's the ultraviolet light that you've been talking about, that kind of light. If we could get an ultraviolet bulb that would be shielded such that it would point up and you wouldn't be looking at the light source itself, is that something we should consider doing in our homes? And what I'm saying is, should I go and look for some ultraviolet bulbs and leave them on to disinfect the air? Can we come back? Can you tell us what your thoughts are? So simple, inexpensive wall sconces that might be $20 a piece, ceramic, protect you from seeing the ultraviolet light source, but yet it's visible upward. Will that disinfect the air? Is it worth doing? Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, so in our house we have these wall sconces that I mounted near the ceiling, not quite, several feet from the top of the wall, the ceiling. And they point upward, and I'm sure other people have them or might consider installing them if they can disinfect the air in their homes. Maybe they have animals, cats, dogs, that kind of thing, or maybe they live in the city, or maybe they just think that, there might be some airborne bugs flying around that they would like to kill. I'm talking about pathogens. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as long as you can't look at the light, it would be okay. You have to be careful not to get sunburn, if you will, in your eyes themselves. But as long as the bulb itself is not visible, it should be okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some of those. I'm not sure if I'm going to go with the compact fluorescence or the curly cues or the LED style. But what I'll do is I'll evaluate some, and I'll let you know, class, what my thoughts are on those. Dr. Shealy, there's a pretty famous guy. His name was Roy Orbison, and he was a singer, and he had a band, and he died of a heart attack at age 52 because of what was called yo-yo dieting. And what he would do, he would eat junk food on a binge, at least that's what I'm reading, and then he would go on a diet and not eat. So he'd eat junk food and then he would not eat, and then he'd eat junk food and he would not eat. And he complained of chest pains, and then he died of a heart attack. So they're investigating his medical records to see what they thought caused it. And it looks like it's possible that this junk food binging, performing, the stress of being on stage, and then not eating well after that caused his heart attack. Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, let's face it, junk food itself is unhealthy, period, whether you binge on it or just eat it once a day. I would rather fast than eat junk food, but I don't do either. Common sense is still essential for healthy living.
Mm-hmm. There's another story that I find absolutely fascinating, and this is a story of, it made the Daily News, so worldwide, and it's a Missouri cop. So this cop was in his patrol vehicle, and here's the headlines. Now this is the cop, okay? The cop said this: I was not texting. I was looking at my phone. Shocking moment, distracted Missouri cop drives straight into a bicyclist. So this cop is in his official vehicle, on duty, not paying attention, looking at his phone, looking down, and crashes into a guy on a bicycle who was stationary. Here's the rest of it. Biker William Finelli was wearing a helmet camera when a police cruiser driven by Officer Charles Wallace plowed into him in Peculiar, Missouri. Now, that's the town. It's called Peculiar. That's the name of the town, Missouri. The officer admitted to having been looking at his phone when he turned. Wallace, the police officer, called the state police to handle the situation to avoid a conflict of interest. He's currently on paid leave from the department pending investigation. Let me say it a different way. Paid leave. So this cop is operating a motor vehicle on duty and crashes into a guy on a bicycle, stationary, on the side of the road. Crashes right in. Drives right into him, and he says, no, I wasn't texting. I was looking at my phone.
Doesn't matter. He was beyond stupid.
So I decided that right then and there, guilty, absolutely. And I decided right then and there that I would propose a bill to the Missouri State Legislature as well as the U.S. Congress. And when we come back, I will read this bill. It's just one sentence long. All of my bills are just one sentence long. It has to do with government, corporate employees. We'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, and we're going to get to Joey in just a few seconds. I just wanted to finish up this thought that I had. You know, the cop runs right into this bicyclist who was stopped. Okay? And there's a video of it because the bicyclist had a helmet camera on. And so I offer this bill to the Missouri State Legislature as well as to the U.S. Congress. I know they're listening. So here's the bill. And as always, my bills are just one sentence long. So here it is. Any government, corporation, employee, or office holder shall exhibit behavior that sets only positive examples while on duty. Else, he will forfeit his pension and will be immediately fired for failure to do so. Any government, corporation, employee, or officer shall exhibit behavior that sets only positive examples while on duty. Else, he will forfeit his pension and will be immediately fired for failure to do so. And so this cop who's looking down while he's driving is not exhibiting a positive example. He needs to immediately be fired, not paid leave, immediately be fired. He needs to be charged, arrested, and sentenced for criminal activity, mowing down a person, okay, while on duty, and lose his pension. I challenge the Missouri government, corporation, to enact that one-sentence bill, as well as the U.S.
I would
Congress.
like to add another one. All drivers must not drive with a cell phone turned on. There is no excuse for even listening to a cell phone ring while you're driving. I
agree. And the proof of that, and Joey, I'd love to hear your comments. If you are at an intersection in Michigan, Joey, USA Prepares instructor, and you look to, if you're stopped at an intersection and there are cars around you, and you look to the left, right, or through your windshield, through the rear window of the vehicle in front of you, how many of those vehicles exhibit behavior of texting, talking, playing games, or whatever they do on the cell phone? What I'm saying is looking down. How often does that happen? Would that be all the time?
It's all the time.
Joey, you're all the time?
Can you hear? All the time. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes, yes, I can. Slight delay, but yes.
Yeah, all the time. And what's even better is a mindless simpleton, a woman, we'll call her a councilman, in the city of Grand Rapids, proposed and got a bill passed that if a simpleton is walking in the street texting, you have to stop for them. So now they're applauding stupidity on top of that. Isn't that great? That's a law if you're in the city limits, and you'll get a ticket if you don't stop. But then they said there's areas that they have to particularly cross at, but doesn't necessarily mean, does that mean if they don't cross at it, they get a ticket? But if you cross the street, jaywalk, whatever, and you don't stop for somebody, just walks in front of the car. Because now we're teaching, what's that word? Disregard for law. But anyway, we just can't focus on stupidity anymore. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there. When we're finished with this, I want to ask Doc Shealy this question about accelerated learning.
Sure, go ahead.
How can anybody, Doc Shealy, if say I want to learn a foreign language, I want to learn a martial arts class, I want to learn let's say a DVD learning rules class detail without watching it 800 times, is there a particular state, like a theta state, that you can get put into where you absorb your thoughts a lot quicker watching something?
Well, there are two states. Number one is theta, the brainwave theta rhythm, which is 4 to 7 cycles per second, or gamma, which ideally the peak gamma is 40 cycles per second. Either one of those would increase the learning ability.
What tool, or is there bilinear beat background you can play while you're watching this that puts your brain in that pattern so you absorb quicker?
Well, you can. There is something called sound modulation, where music can be have in it a background of 40 cycle activity, and I love that frequency because it does help you focus. But
what will you obtain more of and quicker, the theta state or the gamma state?
I think you retain more with gamma.
How do you trust the program you buy so somebody is not telling you right? Is there something you buy that, I don't know how to ask the question, this is way outside of my thoughts. Obviously that music in the background, there's a particular beat playing that it sedates you, it puts your mind in a particular
you have to trust the people who make it, because I don't know you'd have to be pretty sophisticated to measure it yourself. The Monroe Institute, for instance, puts out lots of modulated music, and all of my guided imagery exercises now have gamma background in them. Also, you could use PEMF on your head while learning, and that would put you into gamma.
Where do you buy, if you're playing the music with headphones on and you're watching a screen, if you're doing martial arts, that would be one thing. But if you're trying to listen to Hola Paco, Hola Maria, and you're wanting to learn Spanish or German or whatever, how would you incorporate that music into what you're listening to, or it wouldn't matter? You just play it in the background.
Well, I'm not certain. That's a great question. I know that you could, of course, have the PEMF device on your head and then not be listening to anything except what you're learning. That would be the ideal to increase learning, I believe.
Well, let me throw that out there, and maybe in a couple of weeks, Hugh and, what's his name, Dr. Sergey, can dream something up and just bounce it off of each other. Because you know what? As more and more people are more and more pressed for time, you'll lose more and more of your ability to focus, think. And there's some really good stuff that a person should want to learn today, even if it's canning food. Because if you don't do it every day, and you don't do it every month, and you do it, you start to forget. But if you can replay these, we'll call them little dramas in your mind, and you can absorb them, you'll have a better chance in the future. That's kind of what I'm asking about.
No, you're asking a very important and useful question. And unfortunately, the only problem with our gamma device is you can't walk around using it. Now, someday when we finally get a commercial company to manufacture our devices so the engineer doesn't do that, one of the top things is to develop the gamma head device, which can be battery powered.
Dr. Shealy and Joey,
Yeah, go ahead.
Joey, I've got a comment. You might be interested in this. When I was at Dr. Shealy's office, one of the first times I was introduced to the chakra sweep pulse electromagnetic frequency device. I was in like a recliner type chair, very comfortable, sitting back a little bit, and I had the pulsed electromagnetic frequency coil around my neck, so I slipped it over my head. And what I felt was an extreme sense of relaxation, extreme, and simultaneously the ability to think very, very clearly, extremely clearly, clarity of thought. So if I wanted, in my mind, thinking back to this, Dr. Shealy, if I wanted to invent something, that was the time.
Right.
Is that
true? That is true. Okay. That gamma is the state of creativity.
So, Joey, I think that you might find, if you're down in our neck of the woods in Springfield or here at the farm in Wright County, Missouri, you might want to try it, and it's right here. So it doesn't make any noise that you can hear. It's non-invasive, and
do you wear it like headphones?
No.
Is it radiating in the room?
No, you wear it. You put it on a baseball cap and put it on top of that so it won't fall down on your ears.
Joey, if you were to make a circle the size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, about that size, there's a coil of an antenna, if you will, in a coil, and it's attached to a lead wire, actually 2 lead wires. And that gets attached to a control box and a power supply, very small power supply. And there are electromagnetic frequencies that sweep through a specific frequency range. And what you can do is you can put it on your chest, you can put it on your back, you can put it wherever you want, and it has an effect. And let me tell you, my mom was hard of hearing at 94, and I put the coil over her and over her head, and she just would read while this coil was on her head, or she would just relax for 15 minutes or so. A couple days later, my mom, I could be talking with my wife across the kitchen softly, and my mom could hear every word. So I mentioned this to Dr. Shealy, that it had this profound effect on her hearing. And that was the first that I believe that you learned that that's another potential use for this, Dr. Shealy. Is that right?
Was that a lasting result?
Yes.
Wow.
Joey, you want to hold? Joey, please hold.
Yeah, go.
Joey in Michigan's with us. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. normshealy.com. Joey asked about accelerated learning, and I think that there really is something to this. And I'm going to do an experiment, over the next couple of weeks, because I need to become really creative and inventive for some things on the farm. We're experiencing a massive drought here, and I need to be really, really creative for our farm to survive. So I can't think of a better way to attack this problem than to put the chakra sweep pulsed electromagnetic frequency device on me and become really creative. Joey, did you have any other comments? I want to tell you that I think there really is something to this.
Well, it starts with a thought, and next thing you know, presto. Norm, the difference between NLP and LP, is there a difference? Neuro-linguistics programming and I'm assuming LP is linguistic programming, correct?
Well, yeah, there's a definite difference between them. It's pretty complicated to describe it, but neurolinguistic is more specific, I believe.
This sweep tool Vinny's talking about, your PMF machine, is there a way that you can modify that so you can go either to gamma or theta, or you can only be in a gamma state? I
don't want to modify it. It's so effective with her. I wouldn't want to change it.
Is there a tool that you're aware of that you can go from any of the 4 states, delta, beta, gamma, theta? Is there such a tool out there or not? Unless it's
the only tool I know is your mind. You can train your mind. Now, for instance, with all of my self-regulation, I can literally put myself into alpha, theta, delta, or whatever. I have proven that with EEGs. But that's mental training.
Do you have one of those MP3s on that or not?
No.
No. So we got to wait a whole lifetime to practice every day to get to that state?
Well, about six months of practice would do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll start with the easy version. We'll see what Vince comes up with your tool. And, it might get you there half as fast or halfway faster than learning on your own, because without a doubt, the state of mind is by far the condition that you're going to create, and just knowing how to get there. But, it just, as everything looks like it's a collision course for disaster, whether it's weather, whether it's people, whether it's could be Planet X, who knows. But what you don't maintain, regain, learn today, you may never have the chance again in the near future, or the rest of our lives.
Well, I just sent out one of my multiple send-outs. The next civil war in this country will be worse than the last one.
Oh, I believe it 100%, because before, people still had compassion. Now there is no compassion. And, everybody's fighting each other just for the sake of fighting, because they're brain dead. Whether it's the EMF, whether it's the G5 coming, or the G3, the cell phone, that's been reprogramming everybody's brain. Vince, what's that movie? What the heck is that movie? The Kingsman, the first one, with Samuel L., whatever his name is, how they use the cell phone to manipulate the mind waves. It's the most realistic visual approach to what they're doing. Obviously, they'll give you a $700 phone for free if you just listen to this. Who gives you anything for free unless they're stealing from you? Norm, I really appreciate your input and direction, and hopefully maybe we can even have a show sometime to describe what the states are. What a delta state, a gamma state, a theta state, a beta state, how those affect your brain, your learning, your movements. That would be a great show.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, Joey. Next Monday, same time, same station, we'll just start a little earlier, about 2 hours earlier. Why don't you give us a call? And I know... Yeah. Hey, Joey, thanks a lot. You're really a bad influence on my writing. I am. So I'll tell that story. I'm coming out of the box swinging because of Joey's influence, and I was kidding about bad influence. He's a great influence, Dr. Shealy, and so are you. Thanks so much for being with us, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys. Be safe.
Have a good one.